You know, there's probably still a lot of people who remember the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind from when it was released in 2002. And I feel pretty confident in saying that it's probably still as beloved to this very day as it was when it was first released. And I mean, why wouldn't it be? It was Bethesda's first big hit. It was a gigantic game with a very unique setting. It had a great story. It had great quests, a variety of different character builds, and best of all, a giant world with tons of freedom for the player. It was a hell of a game that's still beloved, probably more so than its successors by many, to this very day. But there was a very different game released only a year before by a small German company called Piranha Bytes, which just so happened to be their very first game. A game called Gothic. The game is very similar to Morrowind and, in many ways, is a superior product to Morrowind. But while Morrowind went on to be a gigantic success that allowed Bethesda to pretty much go it on its own, Gothic and its sequels still wait in relative obscurity, which is a real shame, because Gothic deserves the same success that Morrowind enjoyed and then some. So right off the bat, I was immediately intrigued by the story of Gothic. It starts with a cutscene explaining that a kingdom is under threat from hordes of orcs, and the king of said kingdom needs magic ore for weapons to gain an edge. He uses prisoners and criminals to mine the ore, and gets his mages to erect a magic barrier around the prison and the mines. But the fools they are, they end up accidentally trapping themselves in their own barrier as well. Now all the prisoners and the mages are trapped in the valley, unable to escape the magic barrier. So they mine the ore for the king, and he in return provides whatever they need. Food, booze, women, you name it. So, where does your character fit into this? Well, you just start off as a convict, like just some random schmuck that's being thrown into the barrier and just given a simple mission to deliver a letter. And the very first people you meet punch you in the face and deliver probably one of my favorite lines in a video game.
Welcome to the colony.
So you're given a rundown by Diego, who tells you to gather a weapon, get some decent armor, and most importantly, head to the old camp. And from then on, you're pretty much on your own in the world of Gothic. And man, what a brutal, unrelenting world it is. The story from then on revolves around you trying to escape this seemingly inescapable prison. You're not some hero out to save the world. You're just a lowly convict trying to regain your freedom. And you have to interact with 3 different camps of convicts in order to find a way out. Each of the 3 camps of convicts are each a society with their own culture, their own hierarchy, their own way of doing things, and they each have completely different agendas. The old camp, which is controlled by the ore barons, wants to maintain the status quo where they mine ore for the king and get whatever they need in return. The new camp is full of lawless cutthroats and mercenaries of the mages that want to escape the mines. And then there's the Sect Camp, which is based in the swamps, and they also want to escape, but they think their god, the Sleeper, will lead them out of the valley. And the valley itself is an incredibly beautiful treasure trove of secrets to uncover and places to explore. There's a great variety of environments, from swamps to forests to mountains, and there's always the barrier overhead in the sky, reminding you that there's no escape from this valley full of dangerous beasts and criminals, which adds to the claustrophobic and, dare I say it, Gothic atmosphere. It's a world that you can't escape from, and it will chew you up and spit you out without batting an eye. At low levels, even the most seemingly weak sauce enemies could kill you. It's going to take a lot of leveling up before you can take on the vast majorities of the enemies in the game, and although you could explore anywhere you want on the map, there are areas that have enemies that you simply cannot defeat. So, for much of the game, you have to avoid many of the areas of the game until you're, well, powerful enough to take them on. And this is one of those games where the enemies do not scale with you. At level 1, you could run into powerful enemies like orcs or shadow beasts or snappers, and they would absolutely annihilate you. And your only option is just run away and come back when you're much higher level. I mean, hell, at the beginning of the game, mole rats and scavengers would be able to kill you very easily, especially in packs. But as you level up and improve your skills, the enemies that would have obliterated you at level 1 or 5 will go down without you even breaking a sweat. Like, mole rats and scavengers would have been a threat to you at level 1, but once you reach level 5 or 6 and improve your sword fighting skills, like, they're literally nothing. You could just one-shot them. Like, the sense of progression in this game is probably some of the best I have seen in a video game ever. And it's easily the best thing about this game. Starting out as a nobody, then ending up as a complete badass by level 30 that can obliterate the most powerful enemies in the game. Like, I mean, yeah, like, orcs that would have obliterated you at level 1, when you reach level 30, like, they won't even be a threat anymore. But even once you reach level 30, there's still plenty of enemies out there that could give you a challenge. Like, say, orcs, while not as much of a threat as before, if you get to fighting them in groups, they could still provide you a decent enough challenge. And the game's leveling up system is very similar to other role-playing games, but refreshingly different too. I mean, as you level up and you gain levels, you gain learning points, 10 for each level. So you level up from level 1 to 2, you get 10, and then you level up to 3, you get 10 more. And you spend these points by training with people to improve the skills you want. So when you gain these learning points, you can't invest them from like some level up menu. You have to go out and search for NPCs that can train you in the skills you want. For example, if you want to be a bow-wielding thief, then you need to find an NPC that can train you in archery and in like lockpicking or pickpocketing and etc. So you have to go out and find these NPCs so that you can train up the skills you want, which also has the added benefit of providing more incentive to explore the world and talk to NPCs. And as a matter of fact, your choice in the 3 factions has a small impact on your gameplay, as they each have their own little niches, and joining one might not allow you to reach your full potential as a mage, and etc. You also have to be careful where you spend your points, as skills cost a lot of points, and there's not enough to go around to have all skills. So you'll probably have like 300 learning points by the end, but even that's not enough to learn every skill in the game. You could spend around 100 points alone trying to learn all the magic circles and all the spells. You could be a two-handed warrior who knows how to pick locks. You can be a bowman that can brew potions and forge weapons. You can be a mage who has a one-handed weapon as a backup. But you can't be all of those things. I learned that the hard way on my first playthrough. And the controls take some getting used to, as you can only use the mouse for looking around. Everything else, you use the buttons on your keyboard. Say, for attacks, you have to use Control and then press either the top, left, or right directional pads at the same time to attack. Which one depends on the direction you want to swing from, and if you want to take down enemies and not get killed, you have to like swing your sword as quickly as possible in order to get combo attacks. Like, this is a system that I've never encountered before. Like, there's also no tutorial. The game just kind of leaves you to figure out the controls on your own, and I admit, I had to look online quite a few times to figure them out. But once I figured out what was what and got used to them, I have to say I quite like the controls. I mean, they're unconventional, but once you get used to them, and I got used to them, I quite like them. The magic system is also very fun, and required no less strategy than melee combat. You have to join either the old camp or the new camp to become a mage and reach your full potential. And you also have to buy magic runes that contain a spell that you can use at any time. There are tiers of magic called circles, each that contain progressively more powerful spells, and you need to spend learning points in order to unlock each circle, of which there are 6. Each spell has a mana value that uses your mana pool, which doesn't regenerate naturally, so be sure to keep a shit ton of mana potions on your person, or else herbs that regenerate your mana. And while I do enjoy the mana system, I do have a couple complaints. Namely, magic tends to be more of a click until the enemies are dead. And I kinda wish there was more crowd control or armor spells, as attacks by melee characters interrupt your casting. So when you're playing as a mage, you kinda have to do an awful lot of running away, because a melee NPC will just run up to you and just interrupt your casting, and then just kill you in a matter of seconds. So, it would have been nice to have some kind of, you know, like, spells that knock enemies back, or freeze a whole bunch of them. And well, actually, there are, but you don't get them until, like, the 5th or 4th circles of magic. So, in the beginning, you have to do an awful lot of running away, like, from melee characters. But despite these little flaws in the magic system, I still had a blast playing a mage in the game, and it's probably my favorite way of playing the game. And even with these flaws and some of the clunkiness of the controls, it's still excellent gameplay, and it doesn't bring the game down one bit. And it really is a shame that Gothic isn't more popular. It's got a great, unconventional, and original story. The progression is probably the best I've seen in a role-playing game. It has a beautiful, well-realized, well-designed, and atmospheric world. And it's a brutal game that you really have to work at to get good, where the odds are entirely stacked against you. But that just adds to the feeling of accomplishment by the game's end.